I have seen some big testicular swellings, but you remain professional at all times, no matter what you see. Hi, my name's Dr. Amir Khan. I've been an NHS GP for the best part of 15 years, and I am here to break down some TV and film clips about doctors to tell you what is real and what might be a bit of a stretch. Now, this always happens in movies. You see kind of some unknown substance poured into a drink, someone drinks it, and then within seconds they start to feel unwell. Poisons don't tend to work that quickly. It's usually hours or even days, and it's a slow progress to being unwell and genuinely sick. This is a very efficient poison. I'm not sure what it is, but generally they're not that quick. Actually, that's fairly accurate. Inducing vomiting after ingesting a poison is something that we do sometimes do, particularly if people have taken things like overdoses of medication. We can give them something called Ipecac in hospital, which will make them vomit it up. Depends on how soon after we see them. If it's immediate, which it was here, vomiting can be quite effective as part of a wider treatment plan.
Ventricular tachycardia, digitalis. What the hell do we give him? Okay, that's amphetamines.
Adrenaline. As soon as it reads charge, okay, that'll work. Bond.
So James Bond here is in a rhythm called ventricular tachycardia. So his heart is literally just doing this. It's not pumping blood effectively around his body. He's just doing this. He shouldn't be conscious, and he certainly wouldn't be able to take instructions on how to give himself a shock. But a shock is indeed what he needs, so that bit is accurate. I'm hoping that's adrenaline, because he does need some adrenaline. And again, someone else would be normally doing that for you because you'd be nearly dead.
You okay?
Me?
And I know he's James Bond and he's super smooth, but once you've been shot back to life after a ventricular tachycardia or VT, you wouldn't be that concerned about someone else's safety. You'd be pretty flawed, pretty out of it, not really coherent, but he has got a thing with the ladies. Now, in all my time as a doctor, I've shocked many a patient. Some of them sadly don't make it, some of them do, but none of them have gone to play a poker match straight afterwards. They all end up on coronary care unit for quite a long period of observation afterwards, and they can barely open their eyes, let alone play a game of poker against some of the best poker players in the world. So this is a bit of a stretch, but he's James Bond, and who cares, right? So that was James Bond, Casino Royale. Some accurate things in there with the vomiting and shocking. At least the rhythm was right of the heart, because sometimes they get the wrong rhythm and they try and shock that, which we wouldn't do in real life. I'll give him 8. I'll give him 8 because he's super smooth. So 8 for James Bond.
What are you doing?
Just showing you my run-of-the-mill, slice it right off third nipple.
Well,
Some people do have third nipples, that's real, but they're usually along the same line as the actual nipples, just because of the way the embryos develop. You don't get third nipples on your back, and certainly not on your backside.
Jansen, will you come in here a moment?
I'm with Hamilton.
He's good with weird things. Bring him in, too.
This is quite accurate, perhaps not to this degree. If you see something in surgery and you're not quite sure what it is, and there's one of your colleagues down the corridor who might know what it is, it's easy just to get them in and get their opinion on it. If you find someone with an interesting sign or symptom, something you might not see that often, and there's medical students around, I do tend to, with the patient's permission, round up all the medical students in the surgery, which could be 8 to 10 of them, so they can listen perhaps to some breath sounds or some abnormal heart sounds, but it would always be with the patient's permission.
Notice. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been practicing medicine for 23 years, and I'm stumped.
If you're not sure what a skin lesion is, usually what happens is we take a sample or a biopsy of it and we send it off to the lab and they will tell us what it is after they've looked at it through a microscope. We don't wear kind of magnifying glasses on our foreheads anymore, even though sometimes I wish I did because they're kind of cool. We have got something called dermatoscopes, which we can put on top of a skin lesion, and it will amplify the image quite nicely so we can get a detailed look at it. It's far more accurate, and you can take a photograph on there as well, which you can upload into patients' notes, which you can then send across with your referral to see a specialist too.
We appear to have angered it.
We angered it?
Oh, I think I see the problem.
I'm not sure about alternative medicine. Some of it, yes, it has been shown to work. Acupuncture has. But I'm not sure going to a guru Sarge is the right idea if you've got a skin lesion that is undiagnosed. Perhaps start with the medical profession first. So that was an episode of Friends where Ross had an undiagnosed skin lesion. Usually, I would say, go see a medic, they would take a biopsy and find out what it was. Certainly I wouldn't go to a alternative practitioner for that. Accuracy rating, I'm going to go for 4. And the only reason I'm giving him any scores at all is because I love Friends.
It's about my bowel movements.
What is it these days? You sure you want to be here for this?
We do everything together.
Of course. Toilet.
I see loads of patients about bowel movements. Once I asked for a poo sample from a patient, and he actually took his pants down and pooed on the floor of my surgery, and that was really bizarre. And I didn't quite know what to say. And I said, no, I need it in this bottle. This is when there was poo all over my floor. And he just apologised, took the bottle, went to the bathroom, and came back with a sample in that bottle, and I was left with this lovely gift he'd left me. So, yeah, that's what this reminds me of.
That's cheating with another food group.
What?
His floaters float because they're full of fat. Probably had a big cheeseburger for lunch.
Now that's actually true. If your poos are full of fat, the posh word for that is steatorrhea. They will float, and sometimes it can be a cause of disease. A pancreatic illness can cause that. It's very unusual for it to be caused by diet, though. So if you do eat a lot of cheeseburgers or a lot of fat, it's unlikely your poo will float, but not impossible. So, not impossible.
I'm accomplished. I'm funny. Can I have whatever I want?
I certainly wouldn't flirt with my patients in the consulting room. I'd get sacked, and quite rightly so. So that was from the series House, which is a medical series based in the US. I've got to say, the communication skills of the doctors in that series, particularly House himself, leave a lot to be desired. But that's part of his charm. I don't think I could get away with that. But the accuracy in terms of floating poos, high levels of fat, fairly accurate. I'd give it maybe 6 out of 10 because I can't imagine doctors these days talking to their patients like that. Certainly not in my surgery because, like I said, we'd all get sacked.
I tell you, that's a simple case of cellulitis right there.
Actually, Dr. Cox, I was watching TV last night and they had this special on flesh-eating bacteria.
Necrotizing fasciitis, yes.
Yeah, I think they...
That's true. So cellulitis, which is the initial thing Dr. Cox mentioned there, is an infection of the tissue underneath the skin. So that's an accurate term. It can turn into necrotizing fasciitis, which is a really serious infection where you can get a bug, and it's a similar bug that causes cellulitis, but it starts eating away at the flesh, and it's pretty grim, and it's really, really serious. But we learn about it in medical school, not from documentaries we watched the night before.
Anywho, point being, they said it was very easy to confuse cellulitis with chompers. Chompers was the animated flesh-eating bacteria that narrated the special.
Look, usually necrotizing fasciitis is caused by a range of bacteria, none of which are called chompers. The most common one is Staphylococcus aureus. It can often start off as cellulitis, but when you see necrotizing fasciitis, it looks very different to cellulitis. You should know about it when you see it, if you're trained to do.
Brittany, recently I made the potentially fatal mistake of getting back together with my ex-wife, who, angel that she is carrying the spawn of another man's seed. So forgive me if I sound a tad irritable when I tell you I don't care what piece of irrelevant...
We do tend to overshare in the NHS. We're very close with our colleagues. We usually know what's going on in each other's personal lives. To be fair, so far that's fairly accurate. So that was Scrubs, a great show. And actually, it was fairly accurate. Cellulitis can turn into necrotizing fasciitis. They can get mixed up with each other. There is a little bit of competitive rivalry amongst doctors about getting the right diagnosis. I'm going to give that 9 out of 10, I think. We don't have time to daydream, unfortunately. That's why it loses a point. But otherwise, fairly accurate.
Why won't we have a look? See if you just pop yourself up there, Michael, and you can get yourself sorted, and then we'll see what we can feel.
So normally, if I was examining someone's testicles, which we often have to do with lumps, I would give them a bit of privacy while they undress. I would draw the curtain round the couch and give them something to cover themselves with. I wouldn't sit at my desk while they undressed in plain view.
Right. I can see the swelling there.
I wouldn't react like that. I have seen some big testicular swellings, usually as a result of infection, but you remain professional at all times, no matter what you see.
Here, we have some medical students in here today. Do you mind if I get them in here just to have...
I definitely do that. If you see something unusual, something that you don't often see, or something you only see in textbooks, it is worth, with the patient's permission, getting the medical student in so they can see it. Because that might be the only time they see it before they're qualified doctors and they have to be able to recognise it. So it's all for education, but you have got to get the patient's permission.
Well, what we'll do is we'll book them in for an ultrasound as soon as possible and we'll know where to go from there, okay?
You can't give us any kind of indication or anything?
We generally can give indications for testicular swellings. There's lots of different types and lots of different causes. Most of them benign. Every so often we'll see a malignant testicular swelling. But generally through examination, you have a good idea what is causing it. And you can give a rough idea to the patient whilst being honest about it being, it could be something else. An ultrasound scan is useful for a testicular swelling. If I think there's a malignancy there, I don't waste my time on an ultrasound scan. I will refer them straight to see the specialists at the hospital.
Here, you'll never believe the size of this wee lad's bollocks I just had in here.
We don't do that. So there were some accurate scenes in that clip from my left nut. Doctor's reaction to the swelling probably wasn't that accurate, but the examination, perhaps getting students in to see something unusual and arranging some further tests is relatively accurate. So I'm going to give it 7 out of 10, I think. Thank you for watching. You can get my new book, The Doctor Will See You Now, in hardback and audio by clicking on the link below. And don't forget to subscribe to Penguin by clicking on the link here for more videos like this.